The following is a special video presentation of the Hennepin County Library.
Hi, welcome to a conversation with Kate Bornstein, writer of Gender Outlaw, Men, Women, and the Rest of Us. I'm Wizard Marks, a Minneapolis journalist. Well, Kate, what's the reaction been to this book that you've heard about?
I don't know. It's hard sometimes to tell the difference between the reaction to the book and the reaction to my presence. Not too many people have seen, a real live transsexual who has been out, let alone heard a transsexual's voice speaking about the nature of gender and why do we have gender in the system. So the reaction from most people when I do talk about this is, well, that's not very different from the way I feel. I mean, I wouldn't do anything like you did with your body. But, I have men coming up to me and saying, I'm not transsexual, but I have trouble being a man all the time. And women come up to me and say, when you say you have to create yourself as a woman every day, I know what you're talking about. And it's kind of like that. I think there's something universal here. There's some kind of universal discontent or malcontent with gender and the gender system the way it stands.
Well, if there's malcontent, then the implication is that gender is forced upon us.
I would think so. I think it enters the culture in a lot of ways. I mean, how many gender-specific advertisements are there? How many times do you have to fill in the little box M or F? And then everybody, the first response is, well, of course, you're a man or you're a woman. And I'm going, well, I don't know. And then there's, no, of course, that's the natural thing to be. And I go, wait a minute, natural? And I look in nature and I say, well, is there anything else in nature that's two and two only and bipolar opposites at that? I really have been looking for a long time, right? And there is no single determining factor that says this is always a woman, this is always a man.
Well, that was an interesting piece in your book. You talked about, I grew up at a time when science wasn't taught well, in a school system where science wasn't taught barely at all. And when they said X, 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 Y were the possibilities, I didn't have any choice but to accept it. And you're telling me that those are not the only possibilities and that genetically speaking there are, 3 or 4 others?
No, there's actually about 14 to 22 others. There's XX, XY, XXX, YYY, XO, XYX, YXY. The list goes on.
And why not?
And why not? That's what I said.
Yeah.
But if that's the case, if we want to pin gender on chromosomes, then we have to say there are clearly at least 14 genders.
So then, male or female, the answer is on Tuesdays, yes.
Bingo. Bingo.
Great.
Yeah, I'm looking forward.
That gives you a lot more choice. It's less tight.
Yeah.
It's less binding.
Exactly.
It's more decision making.
Well, I don't know if it's a decision thing or not. I think gender is something we use to establish a relationship with someone. I think as soon as we sit down with someone, the first thing, or see someone walking down the street, the first thing we notice about them, the first thing we decide is that a man or is that a woman? And the evidence of this is, have you ever seen someone walking down the street and you haven't known what their gender was?
Yes, the undecided, I usually say someone undecided.
Do you really just leave it like that, or do you try and figure?
Well, sometimes if I get close enough, but it may just be undecided. Some days I can't decide anything, so why can't someone else not decide?
You're pretty advanced, because I can't. If I see someone walking down the street, for real, and I don't know if that's a man or a woman, and I write about this stuff, but I go, what is that? What is that walking over there? I really do. And I think most people won't let go of that, whereas we don't have that kind of obsession to know what a person's age is. We don't have that obsession to know what a person's race is, what their educational level, what their religion is. It can be a mixture of any of those things. But let someone mess around with gender. We're on them like a homing pigeon. We go, what is that?
Yeah, well, maybe we need that little grain of solidity. Otherwise you're free floating. See, and give me one solid thing and then I can commune with you. I can talk to you. Give me one solid thing. But if you can back up and say the one solid thing is this is a breathing biped and probably speaks and there's a chance we can say something here.
I think the way to connect, I think you've hit it on the head. I think gender has become a shortcut on way to connect with a person. Oh, that's a woman, I know how to treat her.
Well, thanks to Toad Time.
Yeah, exactly. That's a man, I know how to treat him. That's it. I mean, no one wants to be treated. I don't know anybody who wants to be like put in a little box and treated like half the world's population. We want to be individual. We want to be unique. But when it comes to gender, we don't think about that. We don't say, well, I'm really subscribing to being in this box here.
A whole set of behaviors that I'm not necessarily comfortable with.
Exactly. And all I'm saying in my book is that I'm looking forward to the day where gender is a matter of informed consent, where people think about it, where people talk about it, where when a child is born and someone says, well, is your child a boy or a girl? The correct answer might be, we don't know, it hasn't told us yet.
Well, wouldn't that be fun?
Yeah.
I'd love that.
I know.
Good morning, Mrs. Brown. It's a baby.
Yes, exactly.
And you've got, what, 10 years to make an informed choice? Or
well, no.
You have a choice for the first 10 years and try another.
Well, no. I think one of the things, in addition to gender being a choice, I think gender can be very fluid, because gender, to me, is simply an expression of self. How am I going to express myself today? Am I going to be all girl? Am I going to be just like having a fun time? Am I going to be a little more butch? You know? I mean, it's like you can have fun with that, and it depends on how you feel. And that would be to me a sign that the culture is moving ahead. I think gender has been disintegrating since Leave It to Beaver. I mean, we all took a look at these sitcoms and we went, well, I'm not exactly like June, I'm not exactly like Ward.
Thank God.
Well, no, a lot of people needed to be.
Did? Oh.
Sure, of course, that was the American ideal, or Ozzie and Harriet, God forbid.
Or worse, Donna Reed with those ruffled lampshades. That was disgusting.
I don't know, I like Donna Reed. I like the way her hair bounced. But she was that Breck girl. But I think the point is that we've been discontent. We see things, men redefining themselves very, very slowly, going, well, I don't know about that. We have the Alan Alda wannabes and that sort of thing. Women are certainly in the process of redefining themselves and taking on new identities. Yet why do we stick with those old labels? Gender as a word only entered the culture 75 years ago, and all it means is class. Are we saying that gender is a class system? I think so.
Yeah, I know so.
Yeah.
Well, you transited from supposedly male gender to supposedly female gender.
Uh-huh.
In that process, you have to have lost beaucoup privilege.
You lose the obvious privilege just by transitioning. I used to work at IBM, right? This is what I used to wear at IBM, right? This is my outfit for my... No, it's not. Anyway,
I didn't think so.
I didn't think so either. But I used to work at IBM, and I moved over to Ford Aerospace after I transitioned at roughly half the pay for the same exact job. Okay? So yes, you lose that outward privilege, but there's another privilege. Men are socialized, boys are socialized to grab.
Obnoxious.
To grab. No, well, yeah, that comes along with the territory, but they're socialized to grab, they're socialized to expect things.
Take up a lot of space.
A lot of space. And this is something you don't lose just by changing your genitals. That's something you have to work on. And not all transsexual male to females work on that. And part of my book is written for them to say, you want to be a woman? Work on it. There's a lot that goes
you
with
have
it.
to study.
Yeah,
to get here.
Exactly.
You said in your book that in making the transition from presumably male to presumably female, you not only lost this privilege, but this is how you began to understand the gender construct.
Yeah.
Is going through this transition. Tell me about, that must have been a hell of a trick to work through.
Yeah. What happened was, all my life I knew I wasn't a boy. I knew I wasn't a man. And the only other option in the culture was girl or woman. So I figured, I must be a girl, I must be a woman. Went through this whole thing, bought into it, just like everybody else that I know buys into it. You go, well, yeah, it's man and woman, and if you're not this, you're that. And I went through and got right up to the point in therapy where, okay, I am a woman. That must be it. And of course, I couldn't be a woman with the, with a penis. And so I had to go through genital surgery, and they reshaped this penis into a vagina, vulva, and clitoris. And woke up the next morning, I am woman, hear me roar. And actually, I wasn't quite so bright and cheery. It was pretty painful. But after about a week in the hospital, I figured, great, that's it. I'm done. I'm a woman. I retained my sexual orientation toward women. I've always been attracted to women sexually and romantically. Retained that and began hanging out with lesbian separatists.
Oh, that must have been just a bear.
Who questioned me, who were really
Yes.
kind of cool, and said, well, how can you be a woman the way we are? And some of them were kind, some of them were not. But the kind ones got me thinking, well, no, I haven't been socialized all my life into this culture as a woman. And by the end of a couple of weeks after meeting these folks, I just went, maybe I'm not a woman. And then I went, but I know I'm not a man. And it was one of these, well, what now? And I realized at that point, either I am one sick puppy and should institutionalize myself or off myself, or something is pushing me, something is confining me. And I really examined the I'm crazy one a lot, because I always blame myself for a lot, that sort of thing. And I realized, no, I'd done a lot of study on gender, and I was pretty hip to what it was. But then I realized, well, how do you have to be one or the other? Why? Who says?
Who said there are only two choices?
Bingo. Bingo. And this is the point of the book. That's why I call it On Men, Women, the Rest of Us. And what I try to get across in the book, Wizard, are these three questions. What is a man? No one's answered that one that everybody agrees with. What is a woman? You can ask 10 women, you'll get 10 answers. And the real
12.
question, right? Or why do we have to be one or the other? And that's what I came out of the transition, to answer your question, with those questions.
Do you get a sense sometimes of kind of a Monty Python situation going on here? I mean, I'm really a manly man. You remember when they went through that skit? It's like, how absurd can this be? But the notion of gender as a bipolar situation is pretty absurd when you back away.
Bingo.
Why do I have to choose this? Either this or this. Why do I have to stay put in either this or this?
Uh-huh.
And, women in our stance to liberate ourselves got into drag years ago, to the point where I know women who haven't owned a dress in 20 years.
Right.
And wouldn't own one. But that's not perceived as drag by straight people.
By straight people, no.
It isn't, because
Right.
I've been told that, well, you're not like that, when they see my roommate running around in a skirt and mowing the lawn. He mows good lawn in the skirt.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
So when we're talking about this, and you're making the transit from presumably one to presumably the other, and you open up 14 or 15 other possibilities, now every day you got to think about this. Or do you?
No.
You don't.
Like I'm saying, gender now to me is simply an expression of who I am at the moment. If I meet like a wonderful butch, right, I'll just go femme. That's where I go. And if I meet this really neat femme, I'll go butch. And I think gender is a way, again, it's a way into a relationship. There's this great Chinese philosopher, Huang Tzu, came up with this really brilliant thing, and he said, the mousetrap exists for the purpose of the mouse. Once you've got the mouse, you don't need the trap anymore. Words exist for the purpose of the meaning. Once you've got the meaning, you don't need the words anymore. And from which I would take it into including gender and identity exist for the purpose of a relationship. Once you've got the relationship, you can let go of the identity. It just floats free.
Is this, how does that, when you come into the world with that and you're with someone else, how are they dealing with that? How are they perceiving that?
they're perceiving me as someone who's very, very interested in them. And I am intensely interested in people. I don't want to relate to someone on the basis of, oh, here's a woman, okay, now I know what to do. No, I want to know who you are. I want to know what your values are. I want to know what you love, right? And then I can relate to you.
You seem to want to play in my game.
Always. Always.
Well, then what's your game, though? When do you get, it seems like you're pulling away from being in it, and you're pushing it to the other person, and I'll play in your playground.
No. I would expect you to have that amount of interest in me. Look at how interested you are in me. You're sitting here interviewing me. I'm really grateful for that. And so I want to know back from you, what was it like coming out? What was it like starting to wear, what was it like your first day wearing, like a suit and tie?
I
going
never
to the
got
bar.
that far.
You didn't?
In Minnesota, we wore jeans and big boots and flannel shirts.
Wow. Right, okay.
You couldn't be a lesbian without a flannel shirt for a few years there.
Exactly.
It was really a drag.
Exactly.
I had some real nice silk ones that I wanted.
There, you see, and when I ask you that, am I interested in that? All of a sudden, we have something in common. All of a sudden, well, there was that moment of wanting to express myself by what I'm wearing,
Even though in Minnesota, silk shirts don't make it, 6 months out of the year.
I know. Well, look what I'm wearing in Minnesota.
At once.
No.
Well, I have to check my notes because I lost myself there.
That's all right. That's all right.
Oh, I know. This was really interesting. Talk about the shaman and the in-between. The notion of the shaman and how that comes into gender politics.
There's a cross-cultural model of a shaman, and a shaman is someone who dies, either figuratively or literally, enters the spirit world, sees the gods and goddesses, goes, wow, cool, this is really great. The gods and goddesses then give this person a little gift, a little grain of sand from the beach of all the truths of the world. And this is so blinding, it's so big, it's so intense, that bing, they're born again and they're alive and they have this truth. And the deal is cross-culturally that a shaman has to share that truth or go mad, right? And I think anybody who is walking toward their worst fear, that could be an alcoholic who gets sober, that could be a closeted gay man who finally decides to come out, that could be someone who's been in a job that's been killing them for 15 years and they say, that's it, I don't care, I'm leaving. That leap of faith, we go, oh! And we realize something very, very true about ourselves. And we want to tell people, you know what I realized when I quit my job? This is what happened to me. And transgender people, see now most people when they make that leap have some place to land.
Yes.
We don't. If I say I am not a man and I am not a woman, which is what I'm saying, I don't have any place in the culture to land.
To leap, yeah.
So I keep living up here with holding on to this little grain of sand of truth for dear life, saying, there's something funny about gender, I promise you. It doesn't work. It's oppressing the heck out of us. And that's why I wrote the book, and that's why I perform my work.
I love the title, When Kalaki Brought You Into Town. The opposite sex is neither.
Yeah.
Yeah, that about sums it up, doesn't it?
Well, it's not opposite. Opposite would say there's one or the other, and it's not sex. Sex and gender as terms get confused very, very deeply. And sex is just, doing it, however you're going to do it. Gender is a class, and whenever you're going to classify someone, it's that kind of classification. There's no such thing as biological sex, or saying, well, sex is the biology of it, because that's giving biology some supremacy, isn't it? And isn't the movement of feminism always been biology is not destiny?
Theoretically, yes.
I'm just simply taking that statement and including some more space for it.
Mm-hmm. How are you being read by feminists for doing this? Are you getting any feedback?
Yeah, they, for the most part, I've gotten really rave reviews in Ms. Magazine, the Lesbian Review of Books and the Women's Review of Books. And Off Our Backs is about to come out with a very positive review as well. I don't go around trying to say, move over, I'm a woman just like you. That's a lie, that's a lie, and that's what we've been doing. I'm just saying, no, I'm not a man and I'm not a woman.
Well, I've seen that phenomenon, and the question I'm asking, where I've seen it here in the Twin Cities, is people who are probably recently post-operative. And I can remember coming out and how I was just as bristly as a little pig, just don't question anything, I'm doing this.
Right.
And I suspect that is what is going on there, that they've just been through the surgery and they have to take a stance right now. And that'll probably mellow out as time wears on.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. The system is really hard when it comes to dealing with transgendered people. We are told in our counseling, by our lawyers, by our doctors, by our friends, by our peers, we're told, don't tell anyone you're transsexual. You went through all this trouble, be a woman or be a man, depending on which way you're going, and it's 50-50.
Yeah.
All right? Going each way. But be this now gender. Transsexuality is the only condition in the culture for which the approved therapy is to lie. To deny who you are, to not tell people you were ever. I was supposed to deny 30 years of my life? No, I was a little boy. I was counseled by peer groups to come up and devise a whole false past for myself as a little girl. We were supposed to sit here and go, no, when I was a little girl, do you remember when you went to high school and you had to wear those knee socks? Oh my God. No, I was never a little girl.
Do you remember when you went to high school and you had to wear those damn corduroy chinos?
I remember when I went to high school and went to wear a jockstrap.
Oh, those look quite rude.
They're awfully rude.
I didn't like high school, period, so it didn't make any difference what you wore.
But the fact is, I think secrets kill us.
Yes.
There are a lot of people say that, and we are counseled to keep our identities a secret. So when you see a transsexual woman saying, oh yes, I'm a woman, a lot of that is pressure. A lot of that is pressure to not divulge, to not come out.
At the same time, the gay and lesbian community is saying that secret is killing you. Come out of your closet.
Parts of the gay and lesbian community are doing that. Parts of the gay and lesbian community are increasingly assimilationist and want to simply do no more than to blend into a society which would otherwise shoot them.
Yes, that's true. Happens all the time.
Yeah, bingo.
There have been some hideous cases here in the cities.
Oh.
But there's hideous cases in every city. It's not unique to Minneapolis.
Oh, no.
Even though, of course, we're always Minnesota nice about these things. That's a local joke.
I understand.
How we're Minnesota nice, and it's usually about stabbing people in the back.
Mm.
So if you're going to try to keep this secret, this has got to put a lot of strain on your system.
Mm-hmm.
It would mean you would wind up getting sick.
Mm-hmm.
It would wind up dying young.
Mm-hmm. That's it.
This is not a very pleasant way to look forward to life.
No. And this is why I'm writing this book. This is why I'm doing my plays. Too many of my people are denying so much of themselves. And I think it extends to people who are not transgendered, people who have been assigned male at birth, female at birth, and never question that. We're supposed to be living in America, land of the free, home of the brave, the seat of free choice, right? Yet about this one facet of our identity that is so important to how we live our entire lives, we're never encouraged to question it, let alone do anything about it. Never.
I would suggest we're not encouraged to question quite a lot of things, but that's the base one.
Where are we encouraged to question our genders?
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't think you're right there. We're not encouraged to question gender. But I don't think it's the base one, but not the only one.
What's more base to identity than one's gender?
Nothing.
Right.
We appear to be stuck in the one or stuck in the other.
That's what I'm saying. And I think if we can dismantle that, if we can begin to question that, if we can get the questions out, what is a man? What is a woman? Why do I have to be one or the other? Then we're making some progress. Then we can really have some fun. I think that'll be cool. People say I'm trying to do away with the category man or the category woman, and that is not true. I think people will always be men and people will always be women. I'm just trying to remove them as the only two choices.
Well, yeah, good idea, in my estimation. I'm going to hold your book up in case anybody wants to be able to recognize it at the store.
We like that.
We can do this just like commercials.
And there's a cute picture of me on the cover, and there's lots of before and after pictures on the inside.
They were great.
Yeah,
They were
aren't
great. I
funny?
loved them. Yes.
Yeah.
I thought they were a hoot. How does your family contend with this? Your family of origin, as they say.
My father died before I went through this change, and his passing actually helped me begin to go through it. I had so much onus on me to be the perfect son. You know, as a Jewish middle-class family, the doctor, my mother was a teacher, and I was expected to be, you know, the good son. So when he died, I was very free to explore that. My brother had a lot of trouble with it for 5 years, and now we're just starting to get back together. My mom was very angry for about half a year, 9 months. She was raised in a Jewish household where in Orthodox Judaism, the first thing a man is supposed to say when he wakes up is, "Thank God I was not born a woman." Okay? What would that do for a woman's esteem as she grows up, a little girl's esteem as she grows up? She based her whole identity, her whole value on the presence of men in her life. And so when her father died, her husband died, and then her son became a lesbian, that was a little too much, right? And but we loved each other very, very much. We got to be very close, very dear friends. She just passed away December.
Oh, sorry to hear that. So she managed to pass through that time where she was angry with you for setting that on edge. This is hard, isn't it, to talk about Mom?
Yeah.
Me too. Same reason.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's real hard.
Yeah. That kind of love, you know, it's so important that we all try and find that for people who are weird in our lives.
Well, who's not weird in your life?
Well, yeah, that's the good point, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it's more fun that way.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to just all be, you know, marched out like little cookies. I think we're at the end of the road here because he's holding up 30 seconds.
Okay.
Buy this book. You'll enjoy it. It was really fun.
It's
Thanks,
really
Kate.
fun talking with you. Thank you very much.
Come back to Minnesota again
Yes, ma'am.
in the summer. Don't tax yourself with winter.
A presentation of the Hennepin County Library.